I built that dam myself, brick by brick, bag by bag. It wasn't fancy, but it worked. It sat right behind my property line, where water always piled up during heavy rain. For years, every storm felt like a threat. The backyard would turn into a pond, and sometimes the water would creep close to the house. So I decided to do something about it. I didn't wait for the city. I didn't ask for help. I just did it. A small barrier, maybe a couple of feet high, just enough to hold back the water and guide it safely down toward the lower end of the street. It worked. The next rain came, and for the first time in years, there was no panic. The water stayed away from the house. I felt proud, like I had solved something that nobody else would even bother to try. But then the letter came. The HOA said the dam had to go. It wasn't pretty. It changed the visual harmony of the neighborhood. That's what they wrote. I laughed at first. I mean, this thing was behind a fence. You couldn't even see it from the street unless you were looking for it. But they were serious. A follow-up email warned about fines, daily fines. Then they mentioned legal action. I tried to explain. I showed photos from the last storm. I told them it wasn't just about me. It helped the whole block. But they didn't care. To them it was a rule, and I had broken it. No exceptions, no gray area, just tear it down, so I did. With a shovel and a sledgehammer, I destroyed the one thing keeping my home safe. It felt like losing a fight I wasn't even allowed to be in. And as I carried away the last chunk of concrete, I had no idea what was coming. Because tearing down that dam didn't just put me in danger, it put the whole neighborhood at risk. The flooding didn't start all at once. At first it was just puddles after a big rain. Then the puddles turned into pools. And after a while, every heavy storm felt like a warning sign. Water would rush down the hill behind my house, pool in the backyard, and sometimes creep up to the patio. A couple times, it even got into the garage. I remember one storm where I stayed up all night with a push broom, trying to keep water from coming through the back door. That's when I knew this wasn't just a one-time thing. This was going to keep happening. I didn't jump straight to building a dam. First, I tried the usual stuff. Sandbags, digging shallow trenches to guide the water away. I even called the city once, asked if they could help. They sent someone out, but nothing changed. I spent money on a better pump system, laid down gravel to help the ground soak things up faster. It helped a little, but not enough. Each fix felt like a Band-Aid on something bigger. And I was tired of holding my breath every time the weather forecast showed rain. So I decided to build something that would actually work. A small dam, not a giant wall, just a solid barrier to hold back the water and guide it safely downhill. I didn't cut corners. I read up on it, made sure the water wouldn't back up into someone else's yard. I kept it low, tidy, and out of sight. It wasn't some ugly structure in the middle of everything. And honestly, it wasn't just for me. The way the hill sloped, my place caught the brunt of it, but other homes nearby were affected too. If the water overflowed at my place, it usually meant trouble for the houses next to me too. The dam would have helped all of us. Some neighbors noticed. A few said it was a smart idea. One even asked if I could show them how I built it, but not everyone liked it. One guy complained that it looked like a construction zone. I shrugged it off. I wasn't building a swimming pool. I was trying to keep our homes dry. I spent weeks on it. Every brick, every bag of gravel, I hauled myself. After it was done, I felt safer. I thought we all were, but it turns out not everyone saw it that way. The first time I heard from the HOA about the dam, it came in the form of a letter, neatly folded, slipped into my mailbox like any normal notice. But the tone was anything but friendly. You'd think I'd built a Walmart or a 3-story apartment complex in my backyard, the way they worded it. Unauthorized structure, visual disruption, non-compliance with community guidelines. It didn't even mention the purpose. It was like they didn't care why it was there, just that it was there. I figured it had to be some mistake. I called the HOA office, thinking a quick explanation would clear everything up. I told them it was a safety measure, not a decoration. I offered to show photos of the flood damage from last year. I even explained how it was out of sight, behind my fence, not hurting anyone. But the person on the phone just repeated the same line from the letter. The dam went against community rules and had to be removed. That was it. No discussion, no curiosity, just a wall. A few days later, I got invited to a meeting with the board. I went in hoping for a real conversation. I brought pictures, a printed report of local rainfall patterns, even a note from a neighbor who supported the dam. But none of it seemed to matter. One of the board members, Mark, I remember his name clearly, sat there with a smug look the whole time, barely listening. He kept saying, "We can't make exceptions," and, "If we allow this, everyone will start building whatever they want." It felt like I was being treated like a troublemaker, instead of someone trying to protect their home. That's when the threats started. The second letter was sharper, more legal in tone. They gave me 10 days to remove the dam or face daily fines of $200. If I didn't comply, they'd place a lien on my property. I couldn't believe it. I was just a regular guy who built a small wall to stop flooding, and now I was being talked to like a criminal. The stress hit hard. I stopped sleeping right. I was always tense. I kept wondering how this even made sense, why they were so focused on a structure that wasn't hurting anyone. My hands hurt from building the dam, and now they ached again just thinking about tearing it down. I felt stuck. Like no matter what I said, no matter what proof I had, none of it mattered. The rules were the rules, and I was suddenly on the wrong side of them. The day I tore the dam down was one of the hardest I can remember. I didn't sleep the night before. I kept hoping maybe something would change. Maybe a neighbor would step in. Maybe the HOA would back off. But nothing came. Just silence. So I got up early, put on my boots, and grabbed a shovel. The ground was still damp from a light rain the night before. As I walked toward the dam, I felt sick. Like I was walking to throw away something I had poured myself into. Every swing of the sledgehammer felt heavier than the last. The first chunk of concrete cracked and crumbled fast, and something in my chest cracked with it. It felt like I was ripping away my last bit of security, my only defense against something I knew was coming. I didn't rush. I took breaks, stood there sweating and staring, hoping maybe someone would say something. Stop me. A few neighbors stood outside, pretending to check their mail or water their plants. One of them gave me a look. It wasn't mean, just sad, like they knew what was happening was wrong, but didn't want to get involved. I didn't blame them. Most people don't want to fight the HOA. It's easier to stay quiet. But as I piled up the broken bricks and bags of gravel, I kept thinking, this is going to come back to haunt us. By the end of the day, the dam was gone. Just a flat patch of dirt where something strong used to stand. I cleaned up as best I could, dragged everything to the side, and went inside without saying much. That night, the HOA emailed me. No apology, no acknowledgement of the work I'd done. Just one sentence. You are now in compliance with the community guidelines. It was over. At least, that's what I thought. But 6 days later, the rain started. And it didn't stop. The rain didn't seem like a big deal at first, just some steady drizzle over the weekend. But by Monday, it hadn't let up. By Tuesday, it was pounding. Non-stop. The kind of rain that makes you turn up the TV just to hear it over the sound of water slapping the windows. Gutters were overflowing. The street out front was already pooling with runoff by early afternoon. I stood at the back door and watched the water collect behind my house, the same spot where the dam used to be. But now, there was nothing holding it back. Around midnight, it started to get scary. The backyard was already underwater. I grabbed my flashlight and went outside in the rain, hoping maybe the slope would guide the water downhill. It didn't. It crept forward like it had a mind of its own. My phone lit up with messages, neighbors texting in a panic, saying water was getting into their homes. Some were trying to stack sandbags. Others were calling emergency services. But help was backed up. Too many reports, too many houses. Not enough time. By morning, it was chaos. Basements were full. People were wading through knee-deep water in their own living rooms. A car on the corner was almost fully underwater. I saw someone using a kayak to check on a neighbor. Entire sections of our street looked like a lake. And I just stood there, on my porch, soaked and angry, watching the exact thing I had tried to stop happen in real time. The dam would have held. I knew it in my gut. I had seen it work before. That barrier was strong. It had stopped worse storms. If it had been there, most of this would have never happened. But it wasn't there, because they made me tear it down. People started talking. Neighbors who once stayed quiet suddenly had a lot to say. Some were angry at the HOA. One guy shouted at Mark from the board when he came to check on things. "You did this!" he yelled. Others just looked embarrassed. I heard someone mutter, "Maybe the dam wasn't such a bad idea after all." It didn't make me feel better. It just made me more bitter. All of this damage, so many families dealing with waterlogged furniture, ruined floors, lost keepsakes, because some people cared more about aesthetics than common sense. There was even a news crew that came through, filming the worst hit parts of the street. I don't know if they aired it, but they got footage of the flooding, of cars half submerged, of families dragging soaked belongings onto the curb. I kept quiet. I didn't want to be the guy who said, "I told you so." But I thought it. I thought it over and over. The dam would have held. The flood left a mess that took weeks to even start cleaning up. The water didn't just soak carpets and ruin furniture. It broke something deeper in the neighborhood. People who used to wave at each other in the mornings were now arguing over who should have done more, who saw it coming, who ignored the warnings. Some families had to move out for a while. Others dealt with insurance nightmares, lost things they'd never get back. Baby pictures, letters from loved ones, family heirlooms, all gone in one night of water that could have been stopped. I don't know how much money the neighborhood lost altogether, but I know my neighbor spent over $10,000 just on repairs. And me? I just stood there thinking about how it didn't have to happen. That dam would have taken the pressure off all of it. But instead, I got a clean little email from the HOA a few days after the storm. No apology. No admission that they might have made a mistake. Just a message saying they were working on reviewing storm readiness protocols. That was it. Like we were part of some spreadsheet, not real people whose homes had been torn apart. Nothing really changed, at least not right away. A few people stepped down from the board. Some neighbors pushed for new policies about flood planning, and I heard whispers that the next election might look different. But the damage had already been done. The trust was gone. And the worst part? I did the right thing. I didn't build the dam for praise or attention. I built it because I knew what was coming. And when the time came to protect my home, I was told I couldn't. Sometimes, doing the right thing means you're the only one doing it. And sometimes, the people who are supposed to protect the community end up making it worse. The HOA said they were just following rules. But rules don't mean much when they ignore common sense. So if there's anything I'd say to someone watching this, it's this. Protect your home. Speak up, even if it makes things uncomfortable. Because the people who claim to have your back might not be thinking about what really matters. And by the time they realize it, it could be too late. Don't wait for permission to do what's right. especially when it comes to the place you live.